Next year is the 50th anniversary of the lunar landing. A major new movie charts the ferociously hazardous race to put man on the moon. In First Man, Ryan Gosling plays Neil Armstrong, an all-American hero whose courage and resilience is tested not just by the space programme, but by a terrible tragedy in his private life. Claire Foy portrays Armstrong's wife, Janet, whose quiet resolve and inner strength echoes her husband's. I spoke to both of the actors recently, and we began by talking about the insane dangers involved in taking that giant leap.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Be an adventure.
First man to walk on the moon. That'd be something.
I had no idea how dangerous these missions were and how limited the technology was that they were operating under. And, you know, we have this gilded image of the accomplishment as though it was predestined, and it was always, you know, predetermined that it would be a success. You know, they used to call them spam in a can, the astronauts, and I'll tell you, once you get into one of those capsules, you understand that analogy. We tried very hard in the film to communicate to the audience and put them in the experience. But it's very hard to communicate just how small they are and how fragile they feel.
Ear-splitting, claustrophobic, the entire thing juddering the whole time.
I'm sure you've heard the analogy, but if you haven't, you know, they say that we have more computing power in our phones than they did on these missions. And what they did with the little that they knew is just, it's really extraordinary.
Both of the Armstrongs were formidably brave people. Your performance here is very much about silences. And a lot of the critics have noticed how good you are at portraying strong emotion, but with just small twitches of muscles in the face, or the neck muscles, or the way you walk or something. Hold yourself. Is that harder for an actor than striding around and delivering the lines in the traditional way?
I find lines much harder to do, especially when you're doing an accent. I'd love to just be mute the entire time. No, I think I don't find, like, acting is not an exercise for me anyway of picking apart every single thing and trying to get it right. You know, that's what was so amazing about this job, is that Damien gave us so much room just to do as much research as we possibly could and sort of know our characters inside out, and then try loads of different things. There was no right or wrong answer. He eventually would craft it and make it this beautiful thing that he's made.
Jan, the ship is stable. They're gonna be all right.
He's okay, Jan.
I need you to go home.
Fine. Turn the box back on.
I'll see what I can do.
Now, turn the box back on, now.
Oh, there's security protocol.
Well, I don't give a damn. I've got a dozen cameras on my front lawn, Deke. Do you want me telling them what's going on?
Jan, you have to trust us. We've got this under control.
No, you don't. All these protocols and procedures to make it seem like you have it under control. But you're a bunch of boys making models out of balsa wood. You don't have anything under control.
Now, I have to ask you both about one criticism of the film. Donald Trump, no less, has criticised the fact you don't actually see the Stars and Stripes going up on the moon, as making the film anti-American. What can you say to him? Poor chap, he's very worried.
I think that the conversation around this particular issue is happening almost entirely amongst people who haven't seen the film. And
it's not as if you don't see the Stars and Stripes in the film. It's there a lot of the time.
The flag is represented on the moon and throughout the film, and I think it's a very patriotic film, and I'm looking forward to the film coming out so that people can see it.
Claire, congratulations on the Emmy. I must ask you a little bit about The Crown. Any thoughts for your successor, Olivia Colman? Any tips for her as she starts off on this journey?
No, she doesn't need my help. She's absolutely fine. I think she's just the most wonderful actress as every other person on the planet does.
You have, as it were, immersed yourself in the Queen up to her 30s. And last time we spoke, I remember you talking about the force field around her. I wonder whether after this experience you have any insights into what she's really like that you carry away with you from that experience.
I mean, I've got all sorts of idealised versions in my head of what she's like, but like anything to do with her, she's a mystery, so I'll never know. But I'll like the pretend version of her in my head.
Now, of course, for the last part of his life, Neil Armstrong was one of the most famous people in the world. A huge burden for him to carry. And you now have to deal with fame. Did you learn anything from the way he dealt with it? You take away from this?
There's a lot that I admired about Neil, and I think that he had an extraordinary ability to see everything in its larger context. He could see one giant leap and one small step. When asked by reporters what he was bringing to the moon, if he said, if I could bring anything, I'd bring more fuel. He had an incredibly, this extraordinary ability to see the issue itself, and then he could see it in larger context. He would constantly, when hero worship was paid to him, would use that opportunity to remind people that hundreds of thousands of people were making this possible as well, and that he was the tip of the iceberg. So I thought both he and Janet Armstrong really handled all of that very elegantly, because that is not something that they ever courted, or they were not people in any way that wanted for the spotlight.